I'm a product manager at TransferWise, where I've been for the past 4 years. First 2 years as an analyst, and then past 2 years as a PM for our business product. Just so I get a sense of the room, does anyone here already work in product? Yeah, quite a few. And anyone looking to transition into product? Yeah. Anyone who don't care about product? No? Most people care. Okay, cool. So I moved to London 4 years ago, and I had to send some money from Finland, where I'm from, over to London. And back then in 2015, as we all did, we went to the bank to send money abroad. Kind of made sense. And it was pretty expensive. It took 2 days, and when the money got here, my bank here took some more money from me. I thought, well, that was pretty expensive and bad experience. And these two guys had the same experience when they founded TransferWise 8 years ago. So Taavet was living in London, but getting paid back home in Estonia. And Christo was getting paid in London, but paying off a mortgage back home, also in Estonia. And they were talking and complaining about how expensive this whole process was. They were paying so much money to the banking fees. And they thought, well, why don't we just swap, right? You need some pounds, I need some euros. Let's do it at the mid-market rate. And it happened instantly, and it was cheap, and it was really easy. And that was the kind of how TransferWise and the idea started. So it was two guys having a problem that they were looking to solve. And today, the market's kind of moved a long way. So many consumers now do understand that there's better ways to send money abroad. There's lots of competition opportunities to save and to get a better experience when you're making a transfer. So that's the mission of TransferWise. That what we're trying to do is to make the experience of sending money abroad really easy, borderless. It should be cheap, fast, and convenient. And I'm going to talk a bit today about that journey. So how to build a viral product. And the reason that TransferWise now become a company with 4 million customers that all together transfer £3 billion every month, 12 offices across the world, and with 150,000 business customers using us, is really down to that thing about viral growth. Why does viral growth matter? I pulled some data on customer acquisition costs across industries, and it ranges from $5 to about $400. And if you want to build a big scalable business, then paying £400 to acquire a customer on a low-cost value proposition is not going to get you there, right? You can't spend all your money on marketing costs if you want to give your customers a really cheap, low price. And that's the great thing about viral growth, is that it's friends telling friends about this great thing they found. And the scale is, there's no limit to how many people can know, essentially. So TransferWise today is on the path to we have a 15% market share in the UK, on the path to be the biggest money transfer provider in the UK and soon the world. And it's really thanks to this viral growth. So what I want to talk to you about today here is, how do you build a product that generates this viral growth? How do you build a product that makes people go, wow, that was a great experience. I want to tell my friends about that. And and how can you as a product manager do that? So I'm going to move over here. If you're a designer, you design the product. If you're an engineer, you build it. And if you're in sales, you sell the product. But as a product manager, what do you actually do? How do you add value to this? And how can you, in your current role, actually make the product better? How can you make that a great experience? If you're not designing or building it, what do you actually do? So I pull a couple of definitions from around the web. You could be the guy, right, that's evaluating opportunities and determining what gets built and delivered to customers. That's pretty dry, right? And actually, in a modern tech organization, you're not really the decider of anything. You're a peer to your team to help the entire team perform better. But one thing's for sure is that your job is to make the company grow. Like if you're not thinking about growth, then you're thinking about the wrong thing. I'm sure everybody's seen this chart before. It's got to be in every product management presentation. But it's by a guy that had some really smart ideas. So Marty Kagan wrote that the role of product manager is to create growth by discovering a product that's valuable, usable, and feasible. I'm going to use this, come back to it a bit later. So what does that actually mean, right? But in essence, you got to build something that customers are willing to pay for. They find value from it, and that brings value to the business. It's got to be something they can actually use. So the user experience is really important. And for me, working with business customers, I've learned it's especially important because the person getting the value might be the CEO, but the person using your product might be, in my case, an accountant or a payments manager. And if they can't figure out your product, they're not going to have a great experience, and you're not going to get that viral growth. And the last bit is going to be something your engineers can build. And it's going to be something they can build soon enough so you can get to market quickly enough before the competition. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. So the PM role sits in between those and brings those aspects together of user experience, technology, business, which could be marketing, sales, your other stakeholders. So that's the book. Has anyone read this book? Yeah? I really recommend it. I think I read the book and I thought, wow, finally a guy that explains everything I thought to be true about product management, but I hadn't actually read it anywhere. And then this guy gives you the structure and the insights for, why do you work in agile teams? Why is waterfall a bad idea? And how do you actually create a customer experience where you bring design, engineering, sales, marketing, customer support, all that together and make something that the customer actually values. And the caveat for this presentation, right, is you can build something valuable and you can sell it, you can market it, but if you want something that people actually go, wow, that's something I'm going to tell my friends about, that's something I'll share in my network, it's got to be a lot better than what they're currently using, right? So no one's going to go, wow, I saved £1. They might use you, but not going to tell anyone about it. So you got to find a way to build something that's 10 times better than what the customer currently has. And that's all kind of quite theoretical, right? So a lot of theory about viral products and about product management. So I thought I'm going to just break it down a bit and give you a case study about TransferWise for Business. So this is something I've been working on for the past 3 years. When I joined TransferWise, we had a couple of business customers, but no one ever thought of them as businesses, so no one helped them, or no one were looking at what are their problems. We're 100% focused on consumers, rightfully so up to that point, because that's how you build a big base of customers, is through consumer growth. But I was an analyst back then, and I was doing some lifetime revenue modeling and looking at engagement across the different customer types. And we found that businesses were 4 times as engaged as personal customers. And that's pretty interesting. So there wasn't a lot of them, but if you think back to that framework of value, then clearly these people are getting a lot of value out of the platform, and no one was kind of thinking, well, how can we make that better for them? Actually, I was in a meeting. I was just an analyst back then. I had this big insight. I thought, wow, look at that, 4 times bigger. We should do something. And it was a bunch of engineers and product managers, and I was quite intimidated to be in the meeting to begin with. But one of the engineers said, these businesses, they're just causing so much tech debt in our system. Why don't we just offboard them? Just get rid of them. No one cares about them anyway. And I kind of piped up saying, like, oh, I care. And it was a good chuckle from the room, because I'd been going on and on about this chart for a while. But eventually we did create a team around our business customers to try and see if there's a way to make more out of this opportunity. And as a product manager in a team, when you've found something that you think you want to focus on, you found a customer that you think you can solve a problem for, your next question should be really, who are they? What's the value they're getting from us? And what's a problem that we could solve to make their experience better? Is there an opportunity to create something that's really 10 times better than the alternative? What's 10 times better than business banking like? I had no idea, but we kind of set out to find out what does it mean to build a really great business payments experience. And I'm going to talk through 5 things that I've done that I thought was really useful and kind of share some context around why I thought that was really useful. So we got internal data sources. We heard about this product school track about learning data science, but looking into what you already have can be really insightful. So depends on the stage of the company. If you're a very young company, then there's not a lot of data to go for. But in a big company, there's usually a wealth of analysis and insight that's been collected over the year that no one's just analyzed in the right way to make a difference with it. Customer support and sales. So once you've found something about your customers, these business customers, 4 times more engagement than personal customers, a great way to find out what problems they have is to do customer support. So this is me doing some customer support, and after a while, you kind of get to know who these people are and what stumbling blocks they have, and what's stopping them from being able to get the full value. User interviews, also great. I like to do beta programs, so I'll put up a blog post saying we're building this thing, and hopefully people will find it and say, well, that's something I care about. I'll put a link in and build up a portfolio of customers who want to give feedback. And that's a great asset because they're giving you permission not just to answer a couple of questions, but you can go to their office, sit down, have a coffee. You can ask them, for me it's business customers always, but show me your accountant. Like, what's the thing they're doing with our system? How are they getting value from it? And what's the pain points they're having? Surveys, of course, really useful. And then I'll talk a bit about the external data source we've used to validate opportunity as well. So I was doing these customer support calls, and this is one of our really first business customers. And this is my hero. It's Jere from a Finnish company called Bonusway. And he called customer support, and someone knew that I want to talk to business customers. They forwarded them to me, and he said, you have a great product, but I'm just sick and tired of using it. So this trophy here says 3,688. That was the number of payments Jere had made at that point, and for us that was a really big number. Most consumers make a payment per quarter perhaps, but this guy was really having to use our product a lot, to the point where his day job had become to use TransferWise. So Jere knew more about TransferWise than anyone inside TransferWise. No one else had used it that much, so it was a great person to listen to. He deserved the trophy, I'll tell you. And it's kind of how a consumer sees making a payment. You create an account, set up the transfer, pay some money, we pay the recipient. Easy. But if you got to do that almost 4,000 times, then you're going to be a bit tired of it. So this is a case of seeing what was, to consumers, a really great user experience, a really valuable product. But for a business customer, so it was a very painful experience. So we found this problem, and we started thinking about how can we solve it, and is the opportunity big enough to actually do something about it. We built a batch payments tool. It's not very exciting. It's just a way to process files. But it helped Jere, instead of doing that 3,000 times, he uploads a spreadsheet and does it 1 time. So he had a lot of value from TransferWise, but it was very inconvenient. And by finding a way to streamline a process like that, we were actually able to uncover a new sort of customer segment. So that opened up the door for us to do payroll payments, working with accountants, doing integrations. We built an API on the back of this as well, where today we have really large customers doing all their payments through TransferWise. And that was on the back of seeing that there's a value in our product, which is low-cost payments that you can send to anywhere in the world, and then building the tooling around that to make it a good user experience as well. So on another problem we uncovered by doing the beta program I talked about was these business owners were really loving TransferWise. But after a while, they realized, I got to take a vacation. I can't be doing payments all my life. And they wanted to say to their accountant, here's the access, go ahead and make some payments. And Ben, in particular, his accountant was in the Philippines. And whenever the accountant had to log in, he shared his password with them. Not a good idea, but he did it. But we had introduced 2FA. So they had to get an additional SMS through us to sign in. So Ben had to wake up in the middle of the night to send the SMS code over to his accountant. And he was getting really tired of TransferWise. So another case where you can have a great value proposition, but if you don't think through the user experience, you're not going to be able to deliver the full value. Philip over here had a different problem. They had been bought by a US company. And there's a thing called Sarbanes-Oxley in the US which says you have to have segregation of duties, which means one guy makes the payment, another guy approves it. And that's a case where we actually lost a really marquee customer. I would have loved to put the logo on there, but they went, sorry, it's not good enough. We'll have to find a different solution. And they went back to their bank. So a big blow kind of to our ambitions to build this great business product where they're leaving us for the banks. That's not a good sign. So that's something called multi-user access. Any larger bank will have this for their business customers. There's a bunch of things around it. You might have double-blind key entry, approval roles, approval flows. So that's what we're building to solve that problem. But before you solve the problem, right, you got to think about, okay, there's a problem, but is there an opportunity as well? So you don't want to go off and solve problems for these customers that your engineers hate because there's a bunch of tech debt and that don't actually add that much value to your platform. So to understand the market for businesses in the UK, there's a lot of really good data sources. You can use Companies House for free. There's also DoDeal, Clearbit that gives you US data as well. There's ONS. And we took all that and we overlaid it to our existing customer base to understand where are we getting good growth, where are we seeing our market share go up, and in what segments are we failing. And turned out that we're doing really well with small businesses. Freelancers, micro businesses, small business owners love TransferWise for the price and the speed. But these guys, once you get on beyond the small bit, they were really struggling to use us. We had a couple, and some of them, they were personal customers, fan of the brand. They went, we're going to use TransferWise, and they were really trying, but they were struggling to get the company to adopt it because it was just too inconvenient to make use of. So that's when putting the customer need into the broader context helps you understand if there's an opportunity there. And it's called a Kano, I think, chart, where basically you look at whose needs are you satisfying without and with the feature. So we kind of apply this framework to our customer base to see that these small businesses, they were getting along fine without batch payments or multi-user access or other features. But providing it would probably be a differentiator. So it turns out the banks actually don't survey small businesses well. They treat them like consumers. They won't give them multi-user access. They won't give them batch tools or APIs. They'll basically tell them, get along with the consumer product, that's good enough for you. So there's an opportunity here to create a really great experience for small businesses. And going back to our idea of creating a viral product, something that people want to tell their friends about, building these delightful features could make sense for you. But then looking at the larger businesses, they really couldn't use us if we don't have it. And actually, building all these features is table stakes. So we're not actually going to grow just by having them. We'll get the opportunity to just even talk to them and to try and serve them. Okay, so that was my run-through of internal data sources, customer support, sales, user interviews, surveys, and external data sources. Next, I'm going to talk briefly about measuring viral growth and what I call pixie dust. So that's telling an emotional story about your product to really engage and get them to tell their friends about it. We're going to get to the pixie dust as well, but I'll talk a bit about measuring viral growth. So there's two ways we use TransferWise to measure viral growth. One is Net Promoter Score, and one is the virality coefficient. How many are familiar with Net Promoter Scores here? Most people. And the virality coefficient? Yeah, a few. So the NPS score is become a bit of an industry standard, right? You ask your customers, how likely are you to recommend TransferWise to a friend, and ask them to give you a score. And if they give you a good score, you're on the right track. If they give you a bad score, that's when it gets interesting. If you're getting a really good score like this, that means you're basically bound to grow. But you can also start asking yourself and product teams, why are we getting bad scores? Right? What are customers complaining about? And they're literally saying, I'm not recommending TransferWise right now because you haven't done this. You gave me a bad experience, the payment was too slow, or it was too expensive, or as in the case for payments, your verification process wasn't up to scratch, it was just too inconvenient. And you're pretty much bound to grow if you have more promoters than detractors. There's some industry data on NPS scores. We've been obsessive about tackling detractors, and we have an NPS score around between 70 and 80, which is at the higher end. But it's a great source of feedback for the product teams just to understand what's actually stopping people from enjoying this product or for recommending it to their friends right now. And then the next one is the virality coefficient. It's a bit technical, so we're getting back to, as a product manager, how much time do you spend writing SQL queries versus understanding customer problems? And if you have access to an analyst in your team, you should definitely get to do this analysis. But you want to measure the number of additional users you acquire within a given time frame per cohort and track that over time. So you want to see if the people that are starting to use your product are more or less likely, or not likely, but are actually recommending your product to their friends more or less over time. And a great way to get this data is to have an invite program. So with TransferWise, we have a 3 for 50 program, which has been a big part of the growth, actually. So I think it's about half and half is organic versus invite program-based virality, where you recommend to your friends and you'll get a reward for it as well. That gives you this fantastic data where you can say exactly the people that joined in January, by week 4, how many additional customers have they acquired for you? So it's 75% of TransferWise today come from word of mouth, either via the referral program or via organic referrals. All right, so getting on to the pixie dust. This is what I promised you. So, you can build a great 10 times better product that's the fastest, cheapest, most convenient thing in the world, but your customers might not realize. Right? So we've built this super fast payment from anywhere to the UK, where it went in seconds. And we were so impressed, but none of our customers cared. And it was a big surprise to us that actually people didn't realize how fast it was because they wouldn't bother to go check their bank account, had the money arrived or not. And our speed team, so I take no credit for this, but they had this brilliant idea. Well, let's just do the math. Will this payment be instant? Does it fill all the parameters to actually land in that person's bank account in the next seconds? And if it's true, let's tell them. And they had a couple of different ones. One was, wowzers, that was fast. Your money arrived to Australia faster than the speed of sound. We got this one as well. And that's how you get people to go, wait a minute, that was actually an amazing experience. So you got to deliver the value, but sometimes you got to also kind of on the nose tell them, by the way, you had a fantastic experience here. We also had this problem that our customers didn't understand how much cheaper we were. They all knew that I think TransferWise gives me a good price, but exactly how much cheaper, I don't really know. And we spent a lot of time putting this together. We built bank scrapers, signing up for bank accounts with all the competitors, all that stuff. That's a lot of work. But even so, our customers didn't really get it. Like, I can see TransferWise on top, that looks good. But there's a lot of numbers here, and I can't really connect to it. So this is our marketing team, but I thought I'd show you a video, which this is my favorite TransferWise video. Hopefully it will work.
Now for our most high-end event. Oh, it's going to be a painful one for sure. The world is watching as we step into the exchange rate race. TransferWise a clear favourite here. Let's take a look at the stats. So here's what they tell you it costs to send £1,000 to euro.
Price comparison.
Here's what it really costs. As you can see, no red for TransferWise. On your marks.
It's our founder.
TransferWise leads into first place on the far side. The others are in real pain. West sees red. Oh, a costly stumble, that's gotta hurt. And Lloyd's face says it all. A soul-destroying start. Western Union waiting. It just isn't happening. They're gonna have trouble with these rates. And the PayPal page is palpable. And TransferWise has done it. And that, safe, easy, breezy past the competition. TransferWise covering ground at an extraordinary rate, winning by a huge margin.
So that's a fun way, right, to bring out the pain that you're solving for your customers. So we started this TransferWise for Business thing 3 years ago, and we've worked hard to make it a great experience for our business customers. Built an API, we launched TransferWise for Business through PR and others. We built batch payments, bank partnerships, we got the borderless account live. Global USD was a big thing for businesses. In 2018, we got the business cards live and the zero integration. Maybe you're using it. And coming up this year, building multi-user access, more partnerships, expanding new geographies, and continue to grow rapidly. So that's where we got to today. And so the takeaway, right, is for your customers to recommend your product, it needs to be an order of magnitude better than what they currently have. But being better isn't enough, right? So sometimes you got to think about the story that you tell your customers. So going back to the TransferWise mission, making money borderless, instant, convenient, and eventually free is part of that story that we tell our customers and ourselves and that we all come to TransferWise to work for. It's by having something that's a bit of a mission for yourself that your customers can connect with that and also buy into what you're trying to do. And to create viral growth, you gotta measure it. So thank you. And TransferWise is also hiring, so hit me up. All right, thanks. Do we have time?
Do you have any questions to ask her?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are those kind of comparisons publicly allowed with your competitors?
Yeah, that's the difference of working in a startup versus a bank. Is if you're working in a bank, they'll tell you, don't ever put anyone's logo near our brand. And in business marketing especially, people tend to be very much protective of your logo, right? Don't put any competitors near it. And this is more of a sort of an emotive B2B marketing where we just put it up there. We're not afraid to compare ourselves. Here's PayPal, here is HSBC, here are all the competitors, and they'll send us letters, right, complaining, and we'll tell them, well, the lawyers have it covered, I think. It's supposed to be fine, but yeah, you have to take some risk as well sometimes. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Can you tell a little bit more about the math behind subsidize virality? Means what are the rewards and etc. So,
yeah.
What are the real math factors behind them in the real life?
Yes, the question was, what's the math behind the invite program that we have?
What is the math?
Yes, so when I joined TransferWise, my job as an analyst was to figure out what's the right reward to give to people. Like, how much should we give if you invite someone? And we tried everything. We tried, you get £25 for one, 50 for three, 200 for three. You get credits in the system, we'll pay to charity, and we found out that nothing matters. It really didn't move any needles. The 50 for 3 program we had from the start is the one we still have. So sometimes there's something magical about that number, but 50 for 3 turned out to be the magic number for us.
No, I mean, not in terms of amount, but if you put some amount as a reward, so let's say £15 for you, £15 for your friend, how the reality goes. So if you will segment your clients into the several stratas, so can you tell that it is one strata who use it very often to promote your services, there is another strata with another outcome, third strata with zero outcome. So in the terms of result?
We did one, so the question was, is there a segmentation you can do on your customer base to understand who's viral and who's not?
What are the results of such segmentation?
And what's the result?
Secret, of course.
So I think this is fascinating, right? Like, how do people actually, who do people tell? You know, we talk about virality, people tell their friends, but who do they tell? And especially if you're working across markets, like, who are these people? Is it family and friends, or is it Twitter, or what's the thing that's driving it? And I can't say for sure, but what we did was we looked at, we had an algorithm for guessing nationalities. And if you looked at the UK, and in London in particular, you can make some guesses, right, about how many people from Spain are there versus people from Poland or from Finland. And based on the guessed nationality of this person, we saw that actually these invites, they really spread in people's networks, right? Which is kind of obvious, but it was just cool to see that you could get into one community and they will tell everyone they know, and you get this peak, and then we kind of flatten out because everybody knew it already. And in the aggregate data, you can't see it because you have this beautiful upwards trend, but it's made up of all these tiny boosts of growth in different communities. And in terms of who likes to invite, I think it really differs. So Germans, I think, it's our hypothesis, but we're less inclined to tell their friends compared to Spanish people, for instance. And why that's the case, I don't know. I wish I would have time to find out, because I'm sure there's a nugget in there for someone to do some marketing around.
Germans don't talk too much about money generally.
That's
Travel, salary and stuff is there.
Probably that, yeah. Yeah.
Two adjacent questions. So it's a really compelling mantra that you have about having to be 10x better than the competition to be truly viral. So like, my question's pretty obvious around this. Hugely competitive market, and there's now, I think, something like 35 peer-to-peer currency exchange platforms. How do you make sure that TransferWise are product leading, with innovation and kind of what's next, so that you can, keep to that claim of being 10x better? I mean, I'm a great fan of TransferWise, and I think it's a fabulous product. Even so, I'm not sure I'd say it's 10x better than the competition. So what are you doing internally to make sure you are 10x better?
So I don't want to speak for our leadership team. I'm a lowly product manager, of course, but I think...
It's all about the product, though, so you're the most important person.
I think our mission is really compelling, right? So there's the emotional side to it, right? Like, it's unfair that it's so expensive.
Sure.
But then there's the rational side to it as well, which is, in a highly commoditized market, prices will just keep going down. And whoever is positioned through this trajectory to keep pushing it down will be the market leader. And not just making it cheap, but making it instant, right? And making it really easy to use at the same time. So they'll come up. Well, there is competition for sure. But if I look at the size of the market, what businesses do today and consumers is they use their bank. And that's the problem we're trying to solve. And we're not afraid either to recommend competitors. So you saw our price comparison table. Some routes are very competitive, and we'll tell you if our competitors are better there as well.
And on the marketing side, given that so many of the terms are being bid furiously by all of that competition out there. I mean, what's your kind of general way of trying to carve out new customer acquisition aside from the Refer a Friend program? What sort of insights do you have about growing through growth marketing or growth hacking, that sort of thing?
What would be interesting to talk about? I think one of the really exciting opportunities for a company like TransferWise today is finding new acquisition channels. And when we think about that word, making it really easy to use, then having to go to your bank, which you have to do today, and send the money to TransferWise so we can then send the money on, it's actually less convenient than just making the payment from your bank. But what if you could make the TransferWise payment from within the bank? Now that would be very convenient. It's right there where you need it. It's the same great TransferWise experience, and it's a new acquisition channel as well. So we have
partnerships like Monzo, that sort of thing.
Monzo, N26, and more of that coming. I think that is pretty exciting, yeah. Yeah.
So you've been talking about product a lot, but there's also operations, right? So I'm actually a TransferWise business customer, and I had a bad experience when I first, the first time I tried to use you, had a client in France with a US dollar account. So I opened a US dollar TransferWise account in the States, and when the French US dollar account went to transfer to the States, I was back in the old banking system. It took 5 days, cost me money, more than I expected. But the thing that saved it for you was the operations folks, the customer support, the people explaining how it all happened. So how do you, it's like an ecosystem you're building, right, when you build a company. So how do you manage the interaction between the operations people on the ground, customer support, and the rest of the business?
Yeah, it's a great question. Sorry you had a bad experience.
It was actually a good experience because the ball was dropped in a certain sense in terms of my expectations, but it was picked up by, my expectations of having a bad experience in a bank would be it just gets worse from there. But then your operations folks picked it up.
So we have this philosophy in TransferWise around autonomous teams, and that's quite a common thing, right? For a tech company, you have these squads or teams that work autonomously to solve a problem. But for us, it also extends to our customer support, for instance, where I love it when someone calls in and asks for the manager. And there is no manager, so they'll tell that to the customer as well. Well, I'm empowered to solve your problem. Let's talk about it. And if they insist, they'll transfer you to their colleague next to them. Here's the manager. But there is no other person that you can talk to. And so that's one way, right? Like every person in our support team is empowered to make the right thing for the customer. And one of our values is customer comes before team, comes before your ego. And one of the ways we live that is we all go to a great party once a year. The entire company goes to Estonia and has a fantastic party. But before that, we all spend a day doing customer support. And we sit in on calls, and the brave people will answer calls as well. And it's not just product people and engineers, but we had our investors come for the board meeting in Tallinn, and Andreessen Horowitz and Valor Ventures and kind of high-flying names. And we had Ben Horowitz do customer support while he was over in Tallinn as well. It's this great picture of it. So I think if kind of the leadership shows that customer service is important, that kind of filters through to everybody in the company as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Coming back to the two metrics you shared with measuring the virality, one was cohort analysis and NPS. But these are self-contained matrices within the segment. On the business side, you have NPS and everything going on, and then on the consumer side, is there any cross-dimensional metrics that you measure from, let's say, from consumer side to business side?
Oh, the conversion.
Yeah, conversion or something. How does that work?
I think we should do more of that. We do know that having a big consumer customer base is really powerful in anything you do, because you get kind of cut through. The really challenging thing about business acquisition is how do you reach these really busy small business owners? Because you can't do sales, really, because it's very expensive. And if you do expensive sales, you got to do what the FX brokers do and charge them a lot. But what's really worked is, you can tell me if that's how it happened, but we see a lot of people come in with a personal need and then see, well, shouldn't I do this for my business as well? And maybe compare rates and see like, oh, actually, it's weird, but TransferWise is cheaper than my bank, even though they promised me this great business package. So that is one of a big source of growth for our business segment as well. Yeah.
There was a slide where you show all the market size of small business and large business and difference between that.
Yeah.
How do you come up with those numbers?
Yes, the question was, how do we come up with the market size numbers for the UK market? So that was quite a fun project, actually. So we tried to figure out, like, who are our customers? And we don't ask anyone to tell us their size of the business or anything, really. So we were kind of in the blind, like, who are these people? And then why is the market? Like, the consumer market is kind of clear because there's a bunch of data on it. But on the business side, like, are we big or small? We didn't really know. But turns out if you use Companies House, you can actually match your customer base against the business registry to figure out filing types, I think it's industry classifier codes, and other really good data to say, my customers are roughly this size. And the data I showed you there was on the imports data from ONS. So ONS publishes by industry and company size import-export behavior. And for TransferWise, we care about people sending money to other places. So it's imports and they're paying for those supplies. And that misses a lot of the stuff as well. That doesn't capture payroll, freelancer payments, other transactions, but it gives you a sense of where the market is at.
Can you talk a little bit about how you guys are internally structured? So you mentioned the speed team, you mentioned autonomous teams. Like, can you just define like what the various teams are and what's going to be at a very high level, some of the levels of reporting, if there are any?
Yeah, so the question is how we structure ourselves internally. So we've built the company around this idea of autonomous independent teams that set their own KPIs to help our customers. And that worked really well when I joined. We're 200 people and just a handful of product teams. And then you might think that as you grow, right, that's going to get really complicated. Because you have all these people running around in different directions and doing whatever they want to. But turns out, it's not actually that big a problem. So people will just naturally kind of coordinate around the shared vision for the company and the mission. And there'll be friction, right? But you got to think of the trade-off you're making is between autonomy and speed on the one hand, which the teams give you, and leverage on the other side, where you might have shared infrastructure that people can use, right, and benefit from. So the more autonomy you have, the less leverage each team gets. But the more leverage you put in, the less autonomy, right? So if you have a big shared infrastructure team that everybody has to use, then they're gonna be really slow to move. But they'll be very efficient in going in one direction. So we've seen that focusing on the autonomy side has definitely helped us spin up teams faster, right? Because there's no hierarchy to add on top. So you don't need to hire managers as fast as you build teams, because the teams can kind of run themselves. And of course, you do have to have some sort of reporting structure. So I'll report to our head of product, and the engineers report to a tech lead, they report to the CTO. But you don't need much more hierarchy than that. And the success, I think that's the important bit, is the success of the team is how we measure our success. So it's not, how many lines of code, how many tickets the engineering ship, it's what product did you build and how did it help our customers. And the same for me and for design. So I think that's kind of interesting, yeah.
And is the tech piece shared, or is the tech piece specific for each team?
The tech.
Yeah.
The engineers are all inside teams.
Okay, got it.
I was going to ask, earlier you mentioned with the data that you were pulling to work out sort of how viral it was going in different places, How much, if at all, did you use that data to make more informed marketing decisions? Like, were you understanding certain countries weren't uplifting as much as you thought and then targeting them more because of that, or?
No, we haven't really been able to make any use of it for marketing purposes. When it comes to marketing, we've found like there's a few different things that work really well. So targeting expats on Facebook work really well for us, or writing blog content about how do you open up a business bank account in these countries. That works really well for us. And we try to find these sort of nuggets of marketing gold and then scale that out throughout all the countries where we operate. So that works really well when you have so many places, right, to do marketing to. And then these sort of UK-specific insights, there's less value in pursuing them. Yep.
So let's just go back to the basics. Like when they first started this, let's say a new person starts the same business right now, which you guys started. Obviously there was so many market leaders, there were banks, there was Western Union. So let's say at that point, how did you acquire customers? And what kind of, obviously, if these two founders started, what kind of help did they have? Or did they have like funding at that point? I mean, how did this all accumulate together to be where you are? Because I think that's very important to know, because every case would be different. And great on your success, but how does that work? Like tomorrow you could start your own company, which would be similar to them, but you have to beat them at their own game. So how did that go about?
Yes, the question is, how did TransferWise get started, really? And I wasn't there, right? So it was 8 years ago. I've been for half of the journey, but I joined at the tail end of what we called like early TransferWise. So we were just trying to get attention, right? Like get people to understand there's a problem here, because the problem was so big, right? It's crazy expensive. No one knew about it. How do you get people to pay attention to something as boring as money transfer? Our head of marketing used to say, no one talks about money transfer at the pub. And what he meant by that is you got to tell a story that people care about. And maybe you remember, we had these ad campaigns, these stunts, where we'd go out with, there was a bunch of naked people in the streets of London. There was a parade of people saying RIP hidden fees. I joined one where we were giving a bath for banks, gonna wash off their dirty practices. It was all a bit silly, but it was a lot of fun. And it kind of worked in the beginning because you built an identity. And I don't know, if I would start a company, would I go out and get naked? I'm not sure what the takeaway is here, but if you go back really early, what TransferWise was, it started as two guys, right? One was at Skype, and they had a Skype group where they would just have a bunch of Estonians and other people that needed to transfer money, and there was a spreadsheet. And they would just work out, okay, that guy wants to send money there, I can match that with that guy, and if you all just send the money at the same time, this will work out. And then kind of built, right? So you built from this small group of people and then found more of them.
Did they like go big first in Estonia and then they went somewhere else? Or because one of them was based in London, I presume, right?
Yeah, they actually were both in London.
Okay. But people were working for them in Estonia.
Yeah, and it's always been a UK, a big UK focus. So our head office has, I think, always been in the UK, and it's been a great market for us. I think for money transfer, it's one of the biggest. So it's definitely a great place to start an international money transfer business because they have the euro in Europe, so it's less money to transfer. Yeah. I wish I could help more. That's a great question.
How much of the company do they still own?
Just gotta ask them.
Fair question.
I don't know.
Probably on company's house anyway.
Yeah, you're probably right.
There you go.
We can look it up afterwards.
There you go.
Anyone else? Yes.
This last one. When you talk about 10 times better, how do you measure that?
So we looked at 10 times better. Anyone know where that comes from? It's a Peter Thiel quote, and he said you got to build something that's order of magnitude better for it to be successful. And he meant that to get anyone's attention, it's got to be really a lot better. And but actually, it turned out to be kind of true for TransferWise that we managed to be 10 times cheaper. than the banks. So that was kind of nice, right? It fit nicely with that story. But it's still true that you got to be a lot better, 10 times, 9 times. Doesn't perhaps matter so much, but it's a nice round number. All right.